any cell phones or mobile devices. We also respectfully ask that anyone with an umbrella open at this time, please close it as this is blocking the live stream feed. Thank you.
Sitting right there. Who are you sitting with? Who's with you? going with his mom on Wednesday. You can go back. I don't want to go. I'll probably come back here. That's cool.
Good morning. I'm Kent Devereaux, and I'm president of Goucher College, and I would like to welcome you to the 135th commencement at Goucher College. Please welcome to the stage Goucher College class of 2026 choir, who will sing our national anthem. Please remain standing afterwards for the invocation by Rabbi Josh Snyder, director of Goucher Hillel.
Say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Good morning. Welcome, class of 2026, to your commencement ceremony. I'm Rabbi Josh Snyder, director of Goucher Hillel. As we begin today's commencement exercises on this beautiful Sunday, I ask that we take a moment of acknowledgement for all the people and the moments that brought us here. Goucher College class of 2026, here you are, all of you. You have made it. You did it. We are all here today to celebrate your achievements inside and outside the classroom. We laud you for what you have learned and how you have grown. We admire you for your fortitude, your resilience, and your brilliance. And before we spend the next 2 hours lavishing praise upon you and girding you with advice and wisdom, we ask you to look around you. If you're a faculty member, a staff member, a member of the administration, please raise your hand since we're all standing anyway, just so that you can be acknowledged here for a moment. You are the teachers, the givers, the everyday faces, and investors in potential who have built relationships with these graduates who are here, but for a moment, to learn and to grow. You water seeds that you may not get to see blossom, and yet you see roots spread in the soil of knowledge and critical thinking, nourished in body and soul and in the surroundings that encourage learning. Graduates, let's hear it for your Goucher crew. If you are a friend, a partner, or a child of a graduate, raise your hand. You are the confidants, the late night study sessions, the comedic relief, the ones who help these graduates get up and get through and reach forward. You are our community and the ones they hold on to when things get hard. Graduates, let's hear it for your people. Finally, certainly last but not least, if you are a parent or a guardian or a grandparent of a graduating student, raise your hand. Graduates, for the people who stood by you checked in on you, encouraged you, paid the tuition and the fees, your infrastructure of care and support, and who gave you life, an opportunity to be here today. Let's hear it. All of you here today, graduates, may have walked some paths on your own, but you have not been alone. This community has been there with you, for you, and they delight in the blessings you have become and you will bestow. To whomever each of us may pray towards, we give thanks for this community, for this opportunity, for this moment. You may all be seated.
Good morning to our distinguished guests, Honorable Jamie Raskin, the Goucher College Board of Trustees, assembled faculty, staff, parents, friends, and family members, and most of all to the students of Goucher College's class of 2026. Welcome once again to this year's commencement. I want a special shout out to my 93-year-old mom who is joining us remotely from California. And my wife, who is homesick in bed today, one of the most joyous occasions for us here on the Goucher campus. And also the more than 1,200 other people, friends and family, who are joining us remotely via live stream today. So thank you for tuning in and joining this ceremony remotely. Before proceeding, I want to first acknowledge, as we always do when we gather here on our beautiful campus for this most joyous occasion, the debt of gratitude we owe to those who came before us. At Goucher, we acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, and we pay our respects to the elders, past, present, and emerging, for they hold the memories, the traditions, the culture, and hopes of peoples around the world. We honor the Piscataway people, whose land was seized by Europeans colonists in the 17th century, the more than 500 enslaved people who lived and worked on this land in the 18th and 19th century, the extent of which we are only now becoming to fully comprehend and document. Land that Goucher College purchased and built upon in the 20th century, and where we gather here today in the 21st century to celebrate this commencement. We are blessed and thankful for all that we have inherited, but also cognizant of the responsibility we carry to bear witness to both good fortune and the injustices of the past, to more fully understand who we are and what we stand for as a nation, and to commit ourselves to creating a future where not just the few, but all may benefit. That promise, expressed so beautifully 250 years ago, this year, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We are thankful also to the vision of Reverend John Franklin Goucher and his wife, Mary Fisher, who founded our institution in 1885 to provide women access to college education at a time when women were denied admission to the University of Maryland and Johns Hopkins University. And to those who followed in Reverend Goucher's footsteps in the 141 years since, who labored to expand that access to higher education to other historically marginalized groups. As a result, today we can be proud that Goucher has become one of the most diverse liberal arts colleges in America, a beautiful diversity that you will witness as our graduating students walk across this stage in all their splendor. Students from 43 states and 61 countries, Black and white, Asian, Latino, Christian, Jewish, Muslim, and Hindu, an institution no longer bearing the moniker a primarily white institution, or PWI. I'm especially proud to share that 4 of our graduates today began their journey as part of the Goucher Prison Education Partnership. The Goucher Prison Education Partnership, or GPEP, enrolls over 130 men and women currently incarcerated in prison in Goucher College classes taught by Goucher faculty behind prison walls. This year, I was honored to participate in graduation ceremonies at both the men's and women's correctional institutions for another 18 students who have now earned their Goucher degrees but cannot join us here today. Degrees that we hope will provide our graduates with a fresh start and a better chance to succeed in life upon returning to their families and society. Today is special for another reason, and not just because it happens to be my birthday today. Although I appreciate the special care and attention you took into organizing this surprise party. Rather, it was on this date, May 17th, 72 years ago, that the U.S. Supreme Court handed down a decision that perhaps more than any other would alter the course of America's history in the years since World War II. Do you know it? Brown versus Board of Education. It would strike down the legal precedent that had stood since the 1890s. That separate but equal was no more. I mention this because in my lifetime, that decision has been a touchstone. A spark that started with the integration of public schools, that saw the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, the Americans with Disabilities Act, Roe versus Wade, the Respect for Marriage Act, and so much more become the law of the land in the 70 years since. However, it's a cautionary tale, because over the last few years, we've seen the wheels of progress regress. We've seen beliefs that we hold sacred become suspect, and once inviolable principles violated. So, my fellow Gophers, I ask, what will you do to help stem the dismantlement of the principles that we all hold dear, that an immigrant is not an alien, an individual exercising their First Amendment right is not a domestic terrorist, and that the true measure of a person is their character, not their bank account? Whether you are advancing a cause you believe in passionately, writing and publishing your first novel, starting your own business, or simply getting that first job, what lessons will you take with you from Goucher? You graduate at a time when America is both pregnant with possibilities and fraught with danger. A time when the call to action, encapsulated in the biblical citation on our Goucher College seal, Thessalonians 1, chapter 5, verse 21, that appears on the seal, has never been more important. Examine all things, hold fast that which is good. So, my fellow Gophers, how will you put the skills you've learned here at Goucher to good use? How will you affect change in this world, not with grand gestures, but small, everyday actions? How will you use the power of art and science and creativity to transform lives and build community, even in the direst of circumstances? In short, how will you become the change we all want to see in this world? Today, class of 2026, I ask, what truths will you hold fast and carry with you on this next leg of your life's journey? Life is messy, sometimes painful, but also gloriously beautiful. My friends, my fellow Gophers, we need your enthusiasm, your creativity, your intellect, and yes, your compassion to create that change we all want to see and live in this world. The challenges are great, but so are the rewards. Be a change maker. Now let's get this commencement ceremony underway. And to start us off, I'd like to now introduce our 2026 student speaker, Nalani Brown. I gather that you've heard of her. Nalani Brown is a dance and literary studies major, born and raised in Prince George's County, Maryland. During her time at Goucher, she has served as president of the Dancers of Color Coalition and acted as the dance department student representative, hosting events and facilitating communication to improve the experiences of dancers across the campus. In addition to performing multiple times with the Goucher Repertory Dance Ensemble, Nalani recently produced her own independent showcase titled Lollapalooza, finally ending her time here as a recipient of the Friends of Goucher Dance Prize for Leadership and Service. Please join me in welcoming Nalani Brown to the podium.
Hey, y'all. Down by the banks with a hanky-panky where the bullfrogs jump from bank to bank. East, ice, east side daily, ding-dong. Boom, snap, clap, ba-boom, snap, clap, snap, boom, snap, clap, ba-boom, snap, clap, snap. Miss Mary Mac, all dressed in black, with silver buttons, all down her back. These are some of the games that surrounded me in childhood, on the playground, and once I learned them, I could always find comfort in knowing what to do next. The next step was always very clear, and if I hadn't quite memorized the game well enough, well, I could look at what somebody else was doing. For my capstone research project last fall, I examined hand games as a cultural phenomenon, what they are, how they originated, and what they mean to many cultures. After a semester of studying, I came away with a lot of new understanding of the nuances of these games, and I was comforted by something so familiar to my and maybe many of your childhoods. For many cultures, hand games are a way for children to learn and create community. These games and their predictable patterns help children learn lesson after lesson. As we graduate, some of us are moving forward with the exact same clarity of our next move that any child might have brought to a game of slide, but many of us are not. Instead of the clean choreography of the playground, so many of us are entering a world of improvisation. And even though it is a little terrifying, I'm wildly excited for what we will all do, and also all the ways we will change. I'm sure I'm not the only one who is wildly different from themselves as a child. Hopefully, we have grown so much over the years. Most of us are taller, smarter, better drivers. Maybe we have longer or more colorful hair, different glasses, fewer braces, and louder, more confident voices. Change is a beautiful and unstoppable thing. While studying these games of our childhoods, I thought about how different I am now compared to the little girl who first learned them. Am I as playful? Am I less brave? I'm certainly not as carefree as I once was. What have I left behind in childhood, and is there anything I want to try to find again? These 4 years at Goucher have been full of decisions, explorations, and lessons, but also stress. So many of us have, whether or not we ruminate on it, experienced, endured, and overcome many obstacles and endeavors. From navigating living independently to a global pandemic, traveling abroad for perhaps the first time, large and small research projects, and of course the classic stressors of everyday collegiate life, there has been much to navigate. And we did overcome these things. Everyone's presence here is proof of that. But a life can't be led always running at full speed. Even as we bound towards planned and unplanned futures, I hope that everyone will take a couple of moments and reflect with me on a few things to continue to carry with us from childhood. I hope that we can all try to be curious, aspire to the acute, inconquerable curiosity of an elementary schooler trying to understand the stars. Even as some of us move away from academia for a portion of our lives, I hope that we remain eager to learn about our world and the people in it. I challenge us to be earnest. Be as open and genuinely earnest as a child introducing themselves on the playground. There is much in this life, especially right now, desperately trying to make us bitter and closed off. But it is radical to be yourself unashamedly, and it is even more necessary to love all that you want freely. Finally, I want us to all try and find the kindness of childhood. Not just kindness to others, even though that in itself is beautiful, but I would like us to try and find a soft kindness to yourself again. I know firsthand the pressure it is so exceptionally easy to put on yourself as we start to move into the world. Life can be so hard and grueling. It is important to make yourself a soft place to land. Even as we take this next step into the world, I hope that we can all think a little bit about some of the lessons we might have almost left behind in childhood, and instead choose to hold on to them with both hands. Thank you.
Thank you, Nalani. I'd like now to introduce our graduate and professional studies class of 2026 student speaker. Today's graduate and professional studies student speaker is Lisa Van Riper. Lisa Van Riper is a veteran communications and marketing executive with over 25 years of experience leading, building, and revitalizing marketing communication departments across higher education and well-known consumer brands. She's currently Vice President for Communications and Marketing at our sister school, University of Maryland, Baltimore County, UMBC. She leads digital-first strategies to advance enrollment in UMBC's brand and reputation. But her distinguished career includes some other leadership roles, including previously here at Goucher College. And she came back just to finish her master's degree here once again. So now she will truly be a Gopher. She also was at Knox College, the University of Richmond before then, as well as serving as the inaugural AVP of Public Affairs at CarMax. Having led teams to over 60 awards, Lisa will soon hold an MFA from Goucher and this fall will begin her pursuit of a PhD at UMBC. She also serves on the Board of Leadership, Baltimore County. Please join me in welcoming back to Goucher, Lisa Van Riper to the podium.
Hi, everybody. Congratulations to our graduates and congratulations to your families, too. What a beautiful day this is for all of us. And I also want to say before I jump in, Nalani, you're a hard act to follow. I first want to start by recognizing the Goucher faculty. They got us all here today, so congratulations and thank you to the faculty. And especially those in the nonfiction graduate program of which I am a member. Director Leslie Rubinkowski and my mentors Melanie Tamani and Michelle Orange. Thank you as well to Goucher's cabinet. They lead Goucher, President Devereaux, and the Goucher Board of Trustees. And thank you to my beautiful and patient wife, Erica, and my precious daughter, Lily. Graduates, today you have achieved a major dream, earning a graduate or undergraduate degree. Now that you've reached this milestone, what's next for you? What dreams do you have for your future? Having a dream is essential to a bright, fulfilling life. Dr. Cheeky Davis of the Berkeley Wellbeing Institute writes in Psychology Today that dreams can give life meaning and strengthen your belief that you can achieve great things. And that reflecting on past successes, like graduating from college or a graduate program, can build the confidence you need to take the next step. Eleanor Roosevelt famously said, "The future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams." Michelle Obama echoes that with, "Nothing is going to stop you from fulfilling your dreams. And you deserve every last bit of success I know you will have." So yes, hold on to your dreams. No matter where life takes you, you can make them real. It also helps to face fear of failure or even fear of success while staying grounded in your values. A great example of staying grounded in your values is my undergraduate classmate from Trinity College in Hartford, Liz Elting. After Trinity College, she earned her MBA from NYU and co-founded TransPerfect, which is the world's largest translation company, right out of her NYU dorm room. She is now a billionaire. I kind of know her. In her book, Dream Big and Win, Liz argues that success isn't luck, it's clarity of vision, hard work, and refusing to shrink your dreams to fit anyone else's expectations. Goucher alumna Bessie Moses pursued her dream of medicine when it was still unusual for women, and was a pioneer in providing accessible reproductive health care later in her career, advocating for women's autonomy long before it was widely accepted. Sarah T. Hughes, another Goucher alumna, administered the presidential oath of office to Lyndon B. Johnson following the assassination of John F. Kennedy. She pursued her dream of a life in law and public service, one that required decades of persistence in a male-dominated field. Neil Berger, my first cousin, is an award-winning movie writer, director, and producer. His credits include Limitless, The Illusionist, and Divergent. He started making short experimental films as a teenager, focusing his dreams on a career in Hollywood. And let me just say, it's funny to sit in a movie theater and watch a movie that your kind of famous cousin produced, and remember that he used to get his mouth washed out with soap as an 11-year-old for being mouthy at his parents. After graduating from Yale, Neil worked low-level jobs while building his craft, then broke through in music videos and commercials. 17 years after college, Neil made his feature film debut with Interview with the Assassin. He held on to his dream for decades, and he's been living it for more than 20 years. He's now 62 and has directed dozens of famous actors and actresses. The list is too long to name them all. Neil stuck with the dream he had as a kid, but your dreams may be deferred or may evolve into something different from where they began. You might start with one dream after graduation, launching a career you're excited about, or going to grad school, and end up somewhere you never imagined. And yet an earlier unrealized dream may stay with you as you move forward in life. I'm an example of that. In college, I thought I'd become a professor of medieval literature. Instead, I built a career in communications and marketing. I once imagined I'd be a big deal communications executive in a tall tower in New York City. Today, I'm a vice president for communications and marketing on the 8th floor of a building in Catonsville. But my dream of earning a graduate degree and teaching stayed with me. And we've all seen that timing isn't destiny. People launch, create, and reinvent in midlife and beyond. I'm now 61 years old and living several dreams at once, receiving my MFA today, writing a book, and starting a PhD this fall in UMBC's Language, Literacy, and Cultural doctoral program. My dissertation will examine, thank you, thank you, how college leaders communicate during external world crises and how campus communities respond with the goal of fostering understanding and unity on college campuses in times of crisis. When I'm officially Dr. Van Riper, I plan to return to the dream I left behind nearly 40 years ago, teaching at a higher ed institution. So, no matter how old you are, no matter how your dreams shift or get delayed, and no matter what life throws at you, hold tight to the dreams you imagine now. Let them unfold as you move through life, because they may arrive in ways you never expected. Have faith and hope. Believe in yourself. Be brave. Have clarity of vision. That vision is yours and yours alone. Your dreams are yours to pursue, with you as the driver and your friends, family, and future colleagues as your supportive passengers. As Oprah Winfrey said, you face the biggest challenge of all, to have the courage to seek your big dream, regardless of what anyone says. You are the only person alive who can see your big picture, and even you can't see it all. Thank you for listening, and congratulations once again.
We are honored to have Representative Jamie Raskin with us today to give the 2026 commencement address. And he's told me that it won't be as long as Cory Booker's filibuster in the Senate. Just so you know, just so you know. Congressman Raskin represents Maryland's 8th District in the U.S. House of Representatives and serves as the ranking member of the House Judiciary Committee. Before Congress, he taught constitutional law and the First Amendment at American University's Washington College of Law for 25 years, and served 3 terms in the Maryland State Senate, where he was Senate Majority Whip. As a member of the House of Representatives, he led efforts to pass marriage equality, abolish the death penalty, restore voting rights to formerly incarcerated individuals, and enact the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact. Elected to Congress the same night in 2016 that Donald Trump was first elected president, Raskin was later named in 2021 to lead impeachment manager for Trump's 2nd impeachment trial. That trial, for inciting a violent insurrection against the Constitution, fell just a few votes short in the Constitution of a conviction. Congressman Raskin and his wife, Sarah, also an attorney, had 3 children. His memoir, Unthinkable: Trauma, Truth, and the Trials of American Democracy, about the loss of their only one son, Tommy, the January 6th attack, and the subsequent impeachment trial, became a New York Times bestseller. His steadfast support and advocacy of democratic principles around the world has raised the ire of autocrats abroad as well as at home, and he has been banned for life from entering Russia by Vladimir Putin for his pro-Ukrainian activities. Congressman Raskin, would you please come to the podium here? So, Congressman Raskin, in recognition of your unwavering defense of the Constitution and the rule of law, your service representing Maryland's 8th District and as House Judiciary ranking member, as lead impeachment manager after the attack on our democracy on January 6, a teacher of constitutional law and the First Amendment, faculty member and mentor to generations of students at American University's Washington College of Law, a reformer in the Maryland Senate who helped pass legislation securing marriage equality, abolishment of the death penalty, and restoration of voting rights to returning citizens, a steadfast advocate for civil rights and democratic norms, for your integrity and tireless service to American democracy. The trustees and faculty of Goucher College are proud to confer upon Congressman Jamin Ben Raskin the degree of Doctor of Laws honoris causa.
Well, happy birthday, Mr. President. And that was, he gave me a surprise party for his birthday. I didn't know I was going to get this honorary doctorate. I don't know if I deserve it, but I will work every day to deserve it. And I thank you, Mr. President. All right. Hey, good morning, everybody. Good morning. President Devereaux, Board Chair Cindy Truitt, distinguished members of the Board of Trustees, distinguished faculty members, retiring faculty, Professors Florence Martin and Dr. Amanda Woodson. Nalani Brown, Lisa Van Riper. Beautiful speeches. Moms and dads, uncles and aunts, I don't think they've been recognized yet. Brothers and sisters, best friends and cousins who might be here today. Residents of Maryland's beautiful 8th Congressional District who might be here today. Hello, Goucher class of 2026. Hello. Thank you for honoring me by inviting you to address you for this 2 hours and 45 minutes today. No, I was just kidding, guys, don't worry. Congratulations on your success, which is the concept that I want to explore today, perhaps in a kind of countercultural and provocative way. I've come to praise the success embodied in your studies and in your hard work, your summer jobs and your part-time jobs, your late-night bull sessions, your arduous endeavors, victories and losses both on the playing fields, your essays, your senior papers, your wonderful relationships, your first loves, your beautiful and wrenching relationships, your service on clubs and choirs and a cappella groups, your identification of lifelong mentors and scholars to emulate, your decision to take your place in the modern Enlightenment, which continues to this day. I've come to praise you and your professors and all your supporters at this remarkable college on the spectacular, hard-won success infusing this moment in our time. And I've come to tell you why I insist on using that word success to describe what you've done. But first, I want to start with a question. If you have a friend or a roommate who told you that somebody has got the Midas touch, would you understand them to be saying a positive thing in general? Raise your hand if you think that that would be a positive thing, that someone's got the Midas touch. Everybody now. Okay, I'm seeing most of the hands up there. It's usually intended as a compliment, a positive statement. Does anybody take it to be a criticism? I've not heard that. Oh, well, you're getting ahead of me in my speech then, okay? The Goucher students are too smart. In our culture, in our time, if you look it up online, the Midas touch is a positive thing. But what's fascinating is that the Midas touch now has a meaning quite opposite to its original meaning, derived from the myth of King Midas. It all started when King Midas judged a music competition between Pan and Apollo, and Midas chose Pan as the winner simply because he was his friend. And Apollo got mad and punished him for using personal favoritism by giving him donkey's ears to dramatize that he had acted like an ass in choosing a winner based on friendship instead of merit. Midas was forced to wear that hat in public to hide his ears and to keep people from laughing at him all day. But after King Midas treated a drunken satyr with kindness, the god Dionysus was very moved and treated King Midas to the granting of one wish. We all assume that King Midas would have wished for the removal of his drooping donkey ears, but that was not his wish. Despite being repeatedly warned away from it, King Midas insisted upon this seductively simple wish. He wished that everything that he touched would turn to gold. And when that wish came true immediately, he was ecstatic. That is, until he touched his roast beef, his potatoes, his wine, and his wife and his daughter, and all of them turned into gold. He could not eat, he could not drink, he could not eat. He could not play with his children or kiss his wife because they had all turned into golden statues of themselves. And he couldn't fall asleep on a hard golden bed with a hard golden pillow. Now, desperate to get rid of the wish that had turned his life into a golden curse, Midas begged Dionysus to reverse it. He agreed. He told Midas, "Go wash your hands in the river," which he did, and the terrible curse washed away. And then King Midas asked if he might get his original wish back. so he could get rid of the donkey's ears. But at least in the original version, Dionysus made Midas keep the donkey's ears as a reminder of his folly, first judging a competition in a biased way, and then placing gold above all other dreams, all other relationships and values, converting everything into an extension of his gilded obsessions and fantasies of unlimited wealth, somehow conferring unlimited happiness. Now, why am I telling you, or retelling you, presumably, the myth of King Midas? Well, it's been on my mind a lot lately since we debated in Congress a tax break for the wealthiest corporations and people in America. And I got up to argue that the people who have benefited the most from our prosperity should pay more proportionally in taxes, or at least the same as everybody else, but certainly not less than everybody else. And they should be proud and honored to contribute more. But some of my colleagues thought that sentiment was irrational and outdated. Socialist, they said. They said it would kill all the proper incentives. In their world, I could see that from those to whom much is given, well, very little is expected back. And that debate lasted until the wee hours of the morning, on the record and off the record. And as we tried in vain to talk them down from the tax break that would add trillions of dollars in debt to the country and dramatically increase wealth inequality, one of my colleagues looked at me and directed these words right at me. He said, "You just want to punish Americans who are successful." And what struck me first was the implication that taxation is a kind of punishment instead of a form of contribution to our common life. But then I focused on the value proposition underlying the accusation, which was the equation of success with great financial wealth. This was the King Midas fallacy. When he said that I just wanted to punish Americans who are successful, he meant millionaires and billionaires and trillionaires. In this value hierarchy, the richest Americans are by definition the most successful Americans. And the most successful Americans are by definition the richest ones. This struck a nerve with me. And here is how I replied, somewhat irritably, I can see now. I said, what about successful, underpaid middle school math teachers like my daughter, whose students' parents stopped me in the street to thank me for her amazing teaching? What about successful plumbers like my grandfather, who built his own small business and worked 6 days a week and could carry a bathtub up 3 floors on his back? What about successful starving poets and street musicians who bring beauty and melody to people every day? What about successful sanitation workers and school bus drivers who keep our neighborhoods clean and get our kids to school safely? What about successful union organizers and family farmers, bricklayers and flight attendants? Successful small-town mayors, doctors and nurses, successful moms and dads taking care of their kids while struggling to afford groceries. Why are you trying to use your tax policies to punish all these people for their success? Well, after that day, or after that night, when that bill passed, I started noticing everywhere this identification of success with wealth. Under this theory, I realized many people will become fabulously successful just by being born into the right family. They will inherit their success. Other people will be declared failures by the so-called successful people because they were born into a family without financial wealth, or because they don't make a lot of money as paramedics or early childhood educators or social workers or firefighters, even if they are rendering indispensable social value with their work. Now, I'm not saying that a fabulously wealthy person cannot be successful according to an ethical value system. A lot of them are. Take, for example, Bruce Springsteen, whose life-affirming music rocks the world every day and whose commitment to freedom and democracy is crucial today to our country. Take the great and much maligned and vilified George Soros, a refugee from Nazism, a champion of a free and open society, a wealthy trader who is an extraordinary philanthropist and change agent. Like him, a lot of the successful people who are wealthy have shared their money with other people and other causes. Conversely, we would not say that every destitute person is by definition noble and successful just because they're poor. That's silly. Rudy Giuliani is impoverished today, having been ordered by a jury to pay Ruby Friedman and Shay Moss $146 million for defaming them by falsely accusing them of committing election fraud. But his poverty hardly makes Rudy Giuliani a role model to anybody for his character, his values, or his commitment to the rule of law. But according to this deeply ingrained cultural ideology, many people will automatically be treated as a success after achieving great wealth, even if it's done by completely illegal, criminal, or antisocial means. As Balzac put it, behind every great fortune lies a crime. Take Juan Orlando Hernandez, who was president of Honduras. He became one of the richest men in his country, acting as a very successful narco trafficker. He shipped more than 800,000 pounds of cocaine into America, and he made hundreds of millions of dollars until he got caught, prosecuted, convicted, and sent off to prison for 45 years. Now, this would seem to prove that crime doesn't pay and doesn't make you a success, except for one thing. The President of the United States, a billionaire himself with 34 felony criminal convictions to his name, stepped forward to grant a full and complete pardon to former President Hernandez for all offenses he committed against the United States, saying without explanation that Hernandez had been treated very unfairly by the Department of Justice, and he set him free by commuting his sentence and canceling all of his fines, totaling more than $8 million. There are a lot of success stories like that in a world saturated today with authoritarianism and corruption. The richest man in the world, and therefore obviously the most successful, might be Vladimir Putin, a plunderer of the people, an embezzler, a poisoner, an assassin, a mass war criminal, an imperialist aggressor against the people of Ukraine, a kidnapper of children, a liar, a thief, and a destroyer of democracy, the free press, and free speech. All of them. Maybe it's Mohammed bin Salman. Well, you can pick them yourself. Maybe it's Elon Musk, whose first and most indelible act of public service as the head of Doge was to destroy the U.S. Agency for International Development by gutting its anti-hunger, anti-malaria, anti-HIV/AIDS, and other health projects around the world, causing the unnecessary deaths of hundreds of thousands of the poorest people in the world. The richest man in the world was instrumental in promoting policies that killed hundreds of thousands of the poorest people in the world. And yet, he just bounces from success to success. The false cultural equation of great wealth and great success is essential to the persistence of corruption and extreme inequality in our society and every society on earth. The conflation of gilded wealth with success partakes of the Midas myth that the greatest wish we could ever be granted would be turning everything we touch into gold. That myth shows the dangers of elevating money above solidarity, community, morality, justice, friendship, fairness, companionship, love, family, children, art, nature, food, music, drink, experience, touch, sensual pleasure, even sleep and rest. All of the pleasures that make up a good life and that you've learned about here at Goucher College. If you follow the great philosophers and now scientists of happiness, money is only valuable to the extent that it helps you achieve these human goods. and more importantly, to the extent it helps you help other people achieve these human goods. But if the love of money overwhelms, supplants, and replaces all the human comforts, pleasures, and joys of life, then money becomes a destructive and corrosive force. Like all addictions, such as alcohol, drugs, or gambling, money can trick you into thinking that it is the key to happiness. But like all obsessions and addictions, it can end up destroying your happiness. Money is essential for all of us, which is why vast inequality is a dangerous thing. But the love of money is literally demoralizing. It strips life of its moral promise. As tens of millions of people have been telling us in the streets, we have no kings here. But our president tells us we live in a new golden age. And he's got a point. If you look around, there's a lot that has been covered in gold these days. Gilded Oval Office, gilded White House, gilded signage, gilded hotels, golden ballroom, golden statues on gilded golf courses, gilded limo, golden cell phones, gold bathrooms, and a golden toilet. Our values are off. The times are out of joint, as Hamlet said. Our leaders seem to know the price of everything, but the value of nothing. So where are we going, my friends? How do we find our way home? I want to propose, dear Goucher grads of 2026, that the way to start is for each one of you to take the word success back from the autocrats and kleptocrats and plutocrats who have twisted it and usurped it beyond recognition for your own purposes. You must define success for yourself. What are you going to do with your one beautiful free life? How will you make it succeed? That is what you should be talking about at your graduation parties before you have a sip to drink. The beautiful thing about this final homework assignment that I give you is that it's an essay question. It's not an objective multiple choice question. And you've actually got the rest of your life to answer it. Each of you, armed with the amazing education you got here, will have the chance, indeed the responsibility, to define what success means and to fashion your own sense of integrity and achievement. So I want to close with a different story, an old, somewhat musty American story which offers a radically different and extremely compelling vision of success. You all know it, or at least I hope you do. It's The Wizard of Oz, perhaps the greatest American myth, greater certainly than the individualist myth of Horatio Alger and the racist polemic of Gone with the Wind. Frank Baum's riveting fantasy was written in 1900 as an economic and political parable about the 1896 presidential election. On one side was William McKinley, the champion of Wall Street and the gold standard, who appears in the book and then the movie as the Wizard of Oz. Oz being OZ, an ounce of gold, and living in mystery behind all kinds of doors and traps in the land of Oz, which is at the end of the yellow brick road, the golden road, the yellow brick road. On the other side is William Jennings Bryan, the populist hero of the common man and woman, every man and every woman, who appeared as the lion, afraid of the massive forces of wealth arrayed against him, with the great and mysterious wizard and the wicked witch of the West, who represented wild nature, cyclones and hurricanes, tornadoes that tormented the farmers, and the wicked witch of the East, the distant and oppressive banks and corporations who oppressed the common people. And Dorothy gathered up her friends, the people of the country. She needed to offer them the things they felt they were missing. Political courage to the lion, who represented William Jennings Bryan and the populists. To the Tin Man, she offered a heart. He represented the industrial working class, hardened by harsh circumstances. And she found a brain for the Scarecrow, who represented the virtuous but uneducated farmers. That was the populist coalition, which would follow the yellow brick road of the gold standard to find only that it was a fraud and a put-up job by the tricky man behind the curtain, pulling all the levers of power. In this story, success is not falling for the myth of the great and mysterious powers of money and gold and wealth, but rather working together collectively to pursue happiness as a community and for each individual. In the process of this collective odyssey, the participants experience the personal growth they were seeking. The lion finds courage, the Tin Man a heart, the Scarecrow a brain. But in truth, they all had the power to pursue happiness within them the whole time when they gave up the illusions of the yellow brick road and the standard of gold. Dorothy, of course, found what she was looking for too, a way home, a way back to Auntie Em, and a life not controlled by these large impersonal outside forces. All she had to do was click together 3 times. Her silver slippers, representing the silver standard, changed for the movie into ruby red slippers to get back home. In this story, success is collective and personal together. It is not based on radical individualism, but friendship. It is not based on freezing everything into place with a magic wish, but rather traveling together on a spiritual journey. And rather than success being defined by a king, it is defined by debunking and exposing the king's dogma and propaganda, which are based on all the fantasies of gold. Hang on to your friends as you graduate. The friends thou hast and their adoption tried, fasten them to thy soul with hoops of steel, is what Polonius tells his son in Hamlet. Everything we need, we have within ourselves and our community to draw upon. T.S. Eliot spoke in a voice Dorothy could understand when she ended her journey in The Wizard of Oz. He writes, "We shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all of our exploring shall be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time." You have it within yourselves to redefine success, not just for you and your friends, but for a country which has lost its way by falling for the oldest trick in the book, confusing wealth with success, money with merit, vaults with values. My son Tommy had a favorite passage from Wittgenstein in which the philosopher said, "The truth of an empirical proposition is whether it corresponds to reality. The truth of an analytical proposition is whether it obeys the rules of logic. But the truth of a moral and ethical proposition is the courage with which you act to make it real in the world." So go out and find your success. Make it real in the world with your courage. It will be personal. It will be idiosyncratic. Only you can do it. Antonio Mercado, the great Spanish poet, wrote, "Walker, there is no path. You must create the path by walking." Jackson Browne said, "Into a dancer you have grown, from a seed someone else has thrown. Now go on ahead and throw some seeds of your own." And someday, not long from now, people will try to walk in your footsteps, and the seeds that you have sown will be growing all over the world. May fortune love you all in your ventures. May you work together to create a land of hope and dreams for everyone. May you not be afraid to fall and to rebound and get up again. May you lead a life of true success. No kings, no queens, no gilded corruption, no falls for the Midas touch, no golden ballrooms, and no golden statues of the kings. Just you and your friends under the beautiful blue sky in the Free State. I send you hopes for boundless joy and flourishing in the days ahead. Godspeed to the Goucher class of 2026. Yeah.
The awarding of the degrees will begin. All guests are asked to remain in their seats and to keep the aisles clear during the awarding of the degrees. Please welcome Dr. Elaine Meyer-Lee, Provost and Senior Vice President for Academic Affairs.
Thank you, Congressman Raskin. President Devereaux, I have the honor to inform you that these candidates have fulfilled all the requirements for graduation and, in accordance with the recommendation of our faculty, They are presented for the degree of Bachelor of Arts. Mariam Abdi Ruman. Samia Abdul Rahim. Jordan Terrell Abrams. Samara Abrams. Lucy Adams. Michael Adekombi. Brianna Aguilar Oyorzábal. Nancy Álvarez Rodríguez.
Dominic Arena. Connor Argonis.
Aristimuno. Andrés Aristimuno.
Andres Arisimuno. Tadeo Asprela. Trevor Bow. Dwayne Barnes.
Lorenzo Barnett. Brian Bartolón Pérez. Lillian Bassett. Celeste Bowaro. Sarah Begelman. Tiffany Danielle Bell. Charlie Berzoner.
Sydney Boutel. Last name? Mason Bowler. Brianna Brinkley. Mubasha Ayub. Nessa Rose Brooks. Ashley Brown. Madeline Brown. Nalani Brown.
Justin Brown.
Emily Burke. Caden Chow. Emma Chase. Ariana Collier. Caitlin Conrad. Samaya Cullum.
Michael De La Rosa. Olivia De Biasio. Stephanie Del Pozo. Alia Diosis. Mariah Dixon. Delaney Dorr. Eli Dorsey.
Jordan Duma. Theodore Efron. Kaylee Feldner. Gracie Flippin. Shelby Fortin. Nicholas Gambone Jr.
Kevin Gearhart. Shaylin Gibson. Isabella Gilmore. Brooke Goodwin. Thomas Graff. Alanis Green.
Lucas John Green. Farah Grubman. Rachel Haggard. Elizabeth Hannaford. Noah Hansen. Jocelyn Harris. Ethan Hatton.
Dakota Hawkins. Elizabeth Hazel. Lucille Hendricks. Lily Hickey. Andrew Hill Garcia. Quinn Hodgson.
Carmen Honeywell. Christian Hauk. Destiny Grace Howell Clark. Saqib Hussein. Valeria Ibarra. Laila Ingalls. Florencia Ish Arteaga.
Jersey Ingstrup. Zev Israel. Tiffany James. Trinity James. Con Jarvis. Imogen Jeffries. Dylan Jones.
Justin Feliciano Vargas. Oliver Kelly. Alyssa King. Sarah King. David Knott. Mary Lemley.
Deontay Lewis. Jalen Liggins. Kristen Lim. Feng Lin. Amaya Locke.
Lily Luazo. Nicholas Long. Abigail Longo. Robert Lin. Rebecca Maddox. Tembi Makwakwa. Lanice Danielle Marable.
Mark Bell Martin Jr. Grim McIntosh. Chadwick McNair Briscoe. Willow Mayer. Ellie Murtaugh. Tanea McLaurin.
Madeline Meyer. Kathleen Hayesmeyer Miller. Lucas Miller. Mahadi Mishuk. Maida Mohammed Douglas.
Alana Moore. Bronwyn Moore. Ashley Morejon Salvador. Jacob Morgan. Hayden Mosher Smith. Cassidy Mossing.
Gabrielle Naftoli. Emily Nathanson. Natalia Navarro. Kenneth Wing. Kareem Wadrogo. Maya Pavon. Jayla Parker.
Riley Peary. Kai Pender.
Hailey Gabriela Pérez Lazo.
Athena Perry. Clara Phelps. Katie Pittenger.
Maura Poltan. Jasmine Pressbury. Brandon Puckett. Sophie. Sophie Puloni. Madison Quick. Zachary Rand. Denise Reynoso. Zoe Richardson. Inaya Romer.
Lulu Romer. Samuel Rose. Stella Rose. Mitch Rouse. Caitlin Rowe. Benedict Rummo. Kylie Rushton.
Claudia Vanessa Sánchez Guerrero. Keely Satterfield. Morgan Saunders. Charles Schomburger. Isolina Shank. Madison Schisler. Kimberly Schleimer. Henry Shaw.
Elise Shattuck. Darby Sherman. Abdul Siam. Angelique Smith. Jocelyn Smith. Harry Smith.
Anaka Steinmetz. Alessandra Stornini. Sierra Nicole Stokes Nelson.
Eros Strange.
Harper Sutton. Derek Sykes. Aisha Tanet. Azure Tanet.
Brianna Taylor. Tanise Thornton Filliard. Naisha Nicole Timmons. Sawyer Totten. Alora Towns. Lauren Towns.
Tova Bagnin. Paul van Ingeland. Shaka Wakefield. Zibing Wan. Annabelle Allen Mayward. Sky Washington.
Alea Weems.
Ann West.
Catherine West. Corinne Mervius. Simone Luti.
Oneida Simone Lutu.
Trishelle White. Charlotte Williamson. Ronald Wolf. Jordan Wood. Willow Wright.
Zoe Wright Riley. Kylie Young. Ziad Yusuf. Diamond Yu. And Nicole Zorich.
the awarding of the graduate degrees will begin. Please again welcome Dr. Elaine Meyer-Lee, Provost and Senior Vice President for Academic Affairs.
President Devereaux, I now have the honor to inform you that these candidates have fulfilled all the requirements for graduation, and in accordance with the recommendation of their faculty, they are presented for the following master's degrees: Master of Arts in Arts Administration, Master of Arts in Digital Communication, Master of Arts in Environmental Sustainability and Management, Master of Arts in Historic Preservation, Master of Arts in Teaching, Master of Education, Master of Fine Arts in Nonfiction.
Jessica Allen. Ginger Bearden. Jacob Bennett. Richard Bialik. Symphony Brown. McKenna Bruce. Isabella Bruno. Brittany Chapman.
Jamie Chestnut. Lauren Cirenza. Cynthia Cole. Leslie Contreras. Brianna Nicole Crenshaw. Holly Dillon. Emma Douglas. Shauna Ellis.
Hannah Emery. Jonathan Engel. Kate Esther. Abby Evans. Danielle Galbraith. Taylor Grushecki. Allison Hall.
Sarah Hawk. Nathaniel Hisley. Kayleen Horgan. Dennis Izomba. Darius Johnson.
Julia Foster. Suzanne Kaiser. Gabriella Kierman. Sarah Klein. Alexander Krass. Kayla Cothrell. James Manning.
Hybia McCain. Deanna McGill. Michael Mintins. Mariah Moon. Sarah Morton.
Erin Mall. Megan Nissen. Kimberly Oxenberg. Karen Paley. Lauren Peters. Madison Rechtenwald. Cassandra Ryder.
Cameron Regal. Kelsey Rosier. Todd Ruggiero. Molly St. James. Andrea Schutzman. Rebecca Peabody Sewell. Samuel Spooner.
Carly Stevens. Carmina Tañedo. Kayla Truesdell. Monica Valdez Ramos. Lisa Van Riper.
Danielle Venable. Carla Villa. Sarah Parker Watkins. Alison Wells. Renee Wells.
Hannah Lee Wintermute. Caitlin Worthington. And Darren Wright.
So to make it official, by the authority of the state of Maryland, vested in the trustees of Goucher College and by them delegated to me, I now confer to all of you, undergraduates and graduates, individually and collectively, the class of 2026, the respective degrees with all the rights, privileges, and responsibilities pertaining thereto. You are official graduates of Goucher College. Now, graduates, as you enter the next stage of your lives, there's one more commencement tradition practiced at colleges and universities nationwide that symbolizes this transition, the turning of the tassel. That has its roots here at Goucher College. In fact, according to newspaper articles published in New York and Baltimore in 1901 and 1902, the tradition began here at Goucher College, then known as the Women's College of Baltimore City, around the turn of the last century, over 120 years ago. So when anybody from an Ivy League school or a big state school wants to kind of throw you shade, you tell them that that tradition started here, okay? So, to officially welcome you now as a Goucher alum, symbolized by this now universal tradition, please welcome Gretchen Gilliand, class of 2003, the president of the Alumnae and Alumni Association of Goucher College, your alumni association. Gretchen?
Good afternoon. I'm Gretchen Gretchen Gillian, class of 2003, and I have the pleasure of serving as the president of the Alumni and Alumni of Goucher College, fondly referred to as the AAGC. It is my honor to welcome and induct the class of 2026 into the Alumni Association. My Goucher story is similar to many alums I've met. I planned on going to a different school when I was in high school, and my mom made me come and take a tour of Goucher. I went to an abnormal psych class, I had a milkshake in the gopher hole, and I slept on a floor in Bennett. And the next morning I woke up with a different opinion of my plans. I remember standing in the Dorsey Center parking lot telling my parents I could see myself here, something I've heard numerous alums from multiple generations remember for themselves. The scholarship that followed didn't hurt. Like you, the world when I entered my dorm room freshman year to the world that I found when I finished crossing the stage in the SRC with a rhinestone-covered mortarboard was very different. I was a student back when the filming of The Wire was a regular sighting. Yep. We had landlines in our dorm rooms, and we carried pagers. There was a class in orientation for students who were getting their first email address on how to use email. And Johnny O was just a really overeager poli-sci major. For me, Goucher was a safe place where 800 of my friends were within stumbling distance. I learned how to write, something I appreciate in my professional career every day. I learned what civil discourse looks like, and I found my future career. I'm thankful for the mentors I met, the friends I made, and the experiences I had here. For all of you, what is Goucher going to be? 20-something years from now, what will you credit with your time here? Will you remember that class, the study abroad trip, or the extracurricular that helped you find your career path? Will you be thankful for that friend you met in Mary Fisher? Will you be making jokes and voting for Christian Hauck when he's running for political office? I'm sure. I'm convinced. When you leave campus today, whether you feel certain about your next steps or not, take time to reflect on your time at Goucher. You'll find yourself a very different person from when you started. I assure you that even if you can't see it now, you have a lot in common with the person sitting next to you and with generations of alums that came before you. Your relationship with Goucher is lifelong. Connect with other Goucher alums across the world or in your field. I encourage you to stay connected with the Goucher community through events, communications, and volunteer opportunities. Goucher is going to call on you to help plan future reunions or a happy hour in whatever city you end up in. Admissions might ask you to talk to an applicant. Athletics, it's going to be an event or a game. You'll be asked to participate in giving days and micro-internships. I can only ask you consider those as opportunities, and I look forward to seeing you on those occasions. Now the fun part. I have the true privilege of welcoming you to the ranks of alumni and alumni. For those of you who are able, class of 2026, please stand. On behalf of the AAGC, I would like to recognize your outstanding achievements in graduating from Goucher College. You are now officially a member of the Goucher alumni family. You may now turn your tassel from the right to the left. At the end of the ceremony, you'll be handed a special gift from the AAGC to celebrate your accomplishments, honor your time at Goucher, and to remind you that you are always connected to your alma mater. Congratulations, class of 2026.
And you can be seated for one more time here. So all of you graduates of class of 2026, from all of us here at Goucher, an affectionate farewell. We look forward to hearing of your accomplishments, both personal and professional, as you make us all Goucher proud. And we look forward to seeing you on your next visit to campus, as Gretchen said. So we're going to have a final benediction, and please remain in your seats until the academic procession has passed family, friends, and loved ones here. After the procession, graduates, family members, and guests are invited to visit with each other, faculty and staff, until 3 p.m. at various places around the campus where we've arranged some little extra and the opportunity to be able to visit with everyone. So for our final benediction, please welcome back Rabbi Josh Schneider.
All right, class of 2026, now you really made it. As we come to the end of these commencement ceremonies and you commence life after Goucher, I share a final word of blessing from the Jewish tradition. This comes from Pirkei Avot, or Ethics of the Fathers. Ben Azai used to say, "Do not despise any person and do not discriminate against anything. For there is no person that has not their hour, and there is no thing that has not its place." Now, this was written almost 2,000 years ago. Maybe diversity and inclusion aren't such new ideas, no? What does it mean? The medieval commentator Rashi says simply the first phrase, "Do not dismiss any human being." For the rabbis, this derives from the idea that every single human is made in God's image. Hate towards any one human, certainly a group of humans, detracts from our recognition of our common experience as mortal beings endowed with intellect and soul. As basic as it seems, that cannot be stated enough as a basic tenet at this moment, as you emerge into a world in which human life is often cheapened and commodified. Do not dismiss any human being. Not to despise anything, though. Is it harmful to say, I really don't like, say, labubus or wasps or something? Well, there are a few interpretations. One is to think about it in an environmental way. Everything in nature has a purpose. One we may not discern, but we have to see ourselves as part of nature rather than above it. Or, don't trash something if you can compost it, reuse it, or recycle it. Another is this. When the phrase says thing, do not despise anything, that's an English translation for the Hebrew word davar, which can also mean word. Don't despise a word of advice, a piece of information, wisdom, or kindness spoken by anyone. Each word will find the right moment to be useful in your life. Whether you're on jeopardy or you're stuck in a moment where you need guidance, hold on to the words of your teachers and keep learning no matter where you go and who your teachers may be. May you be blessed and kept from all harm. May you find goodness and grace on all the paths you face. And may your striving for purpose endow you with a sense of peace.
No, no me vio, pero ahorita le mando un mensaje.
Más, para que le diga a papá que...
got it. She got it.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
TK!